All right, November 15th, holidays are upon us. Crazy. Let's, do we have any public comment for today for the Conservation Commission?
There's no members of the public on the Zoom.
Do any of the members have a public comment they'd like to share? I'm commentless myself. All right, then let's move on to the minutes from November 1st. Any comments on the minutes? Simon, were you able to resolve the issue with the missing fees on the town website for?
They were on our fee schedule.
They are, okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as development. Any development fees like legal reviews, which is, it depends on what the issue is.
Okay.
You have to get quotes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Great, thanks, Laura. Would anyone care to offer a second on the motion?
I can second.
Oh, thank you, Gary. Any discussion on the motion? Right, all in favor of approving the minutes as drafted from November 1st, please say aye.
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 Thank you. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Okay, minutes are approved. Thank you, Simon. All right, ERF budget memo. This is where I humbly throw in the towel and admit I'm not going to be able to write this memo at night. So I just don't have the brain power or bandwidth to turn on my computer at night anymore and work and create something like this. So what I'd like to do is just pull up last year's memo and get some bullets started. And then at least we have something to work with in this, whatever it is, 20 minutes or so on the agenda for this topic. As a reminder, at least to Simon anyway, I need to leave at a little bit after 8 this morning. I think David does as well. So I'm not sure what that will mean for the rest of our agenda.
Yeah, I need to leave like 5 minutes of it, 5 to 8, something like that.
All right, so thanks for pulling this up, Simon. All right, so when we last talked about this in early September, we had agreed that it might be good to restructure the memo into a bullet format rather than the kind of the paragraph prose form that we have now, so that the points that we want to make or to convey to Eric as the town manager, not me, and the select board are more clear. So I guess the first bullet I was thinking would be just or I guess the approach I was thinking would be to take like maybe the first sentence of each of these paragraphs as a starting point and turn them into bullets and see how that looks, and then work from there to either wordsmith it or add or adjust more points. So we had in September, I think we had talked about increasing the appropriation request to 150,000 from the 100 last year. And is this, I cannot keep the town fiscal year straight.
This would be the money we get in August of 2024.
So it's the fiscal year 25.
Yeah.
Okay. That's where I was getting confused, because I operate on the federal fiscal year, which is like 6 months behind the state. All right, so we want to update that at fiscal year 24 to 25. And
Mhm.
change the 100, the request to 150,000. And then, I don't know about that first sentence, but
We can get rid of that. So this is really just that, it's a service. We want to maintain it, and our town is growing, so it should be increasing.
yeah.
So I think, I guess that.
Yeah, so that second sentence could be either the first or the second bullet, depending on how we
Mhm.
structure this thing. All right, good.
Morning.
So increase it to 150, it's a key service. Then this is why it's a good thing. All three paragraphs here are why it's like what it does, how it's leveraged money,
Yep.
and then our successes.
So I think what we had talked about here was maybe leaving some of this type of descriptive explanatory language in, but leave it at the end of the memo.
Mhm.
And we can pull whatever, some of this information up to the top and turn it into a bullet form as well, so that we get the short, quick impact message, but then the more explanatory message down below for anyone who really wants to take a deep dive into it. I did not get my homework done again, so we're just gonna workshop it here.
Sounds good. Yeah, so something like, you're saying, like a bullet that says like 2.1 million spent, 5.1 million in value preserved, like could be a bullet point up above, but then the paragraph can be down below.
Yep.
Yeah, so I guess that's quite a good stat.
That's what sticks out to me the most.
Mhm.
And I think maybe we can summarize this in a more succinct form, which is that I guess the point here is that when you conserve a piece of land, it's not just a wildlife thing, it's also a watershed thing, and it's also maybe a working
recreation thing.
Yeah, it does lots of different things.
Yeah, and that could be, yeah, so that could be definitely another bullet is, what are the different reasons or benefits of conserving land? There's the wildlife protection aspect, there's the water quality aspect, there's the recreation aspect, there's just the sense of place aspect.
Viewshed aspect.
We can just list out every ecosystem service.
That would be good, Kim.
Every single one.
There's
Yeah. In terms of space, that we might need to just make it one bullet point with like the following services,
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do like, we could totally do like provisioning services, cycling services, regulating services, cultural services with like an example of each thing or something. I don't know. Is that are people going to be like, what does that mean?
I think if you give an example, that might be okay.
Who's the audience for this?
You kind of lost me with cycling services, especially coming from you. I immediately went to biking, but
right. No, like nutrients.
Yeah, like carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle.
Yeah. And then cultural services would be like recreation, spirituality, aesthetics.
Yeah.
Provisioning would be like clean water, timber. And then
That
regulation would be like climate change, temperature regulation.
I feel like we're gonna lose them with that one, Kim.
With the climate change one.
But what if it just said like, natural system services or something at the top, and then down below, it said natural system services include,
Yeah,
and, you know, in the detailed section.
Yeah, there's also like people say, Gary, what do people say that are to like lump the 3 non-cultural ones? I can't remember now.
Yeah, I guess I can't now either.
Maybe using that language is too complicated. I was trying to think of like, how do we summarize this? And then I was like, aha, there's a body of terms for that, but maybe they're too academic.
I feel like those terms and that like learning is what we're trying to do with the event on the 7th. But
Yeah.
this memo maybe needs to be a little bit less learny and a little bit more to the point.
yeah.
Mhm.
I agree as well. Who's the audience? Is this for the select board or town staff?
For this memo, it's the town manager and the select board. It's not intended to, I mean, it's a public document, but it's not gonna be circulated publicly.
Thank you for that clarification. I view this, the value of this memo of being, of course, the Williston Conservation Committee is going to make a recommendation of how much funding there should be. I think they would be looking to us for what is the right amount and why is that amount the appropriate amount. And I think that the value proposition of preserving land is sort of, it's known. I think that if we have a specific dollar amount, you know, Eric, you mentioned bringing it up to 150 or 125 or something like that. I think the point of the memo should then be to say, here's why we think that is an appropriate number. Not we picked it out of a hat and the value of conserving land is wonderful and we all know that. They expect that from us. They expect us to feel that way. But I think they're looking to us for what is the right number and why.
Yep. Yeah, and exactly, we have to justify that request, or it just makes that much easier for them to knock it down, or at least the town manager anyway, to knock it down to 0 like he did last year. We were fortunate that the select board brought it back up to 50,000 last year.
Can we say it's in keeping with the new law of the goal of preserving 30% land in Vermont?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. That was another point we talked about back in September, is bringing up the 30 by 30 and now the 50 by 50 as well. And so we could also talk about, you know, we got a bullet in there about referencing that new law. I don't remember the act number, but the law, and then you know, provide some data about Williston. How many acres is it? Right? Is that it right there? 4,800 acres.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, that's the wrong number. Where are we at now?
The top 20 parcels are 2,500 acres, which would get us to 30%.
Right. Okay. So that would be one number to throw in there, and then the other would be how much do we have conserved now, which I think is around 15%, 12 to 15%, if I remember
If we
correctly.
include town-owned land that is not conserved, I think it was 16%, but I think the amount that's actually preserved is in that 10 to 12 range. The act that passed this year in the state legislature was called Community Resiliency and Biodiversity Protection Act of 2023. And it set a goal for the state to permanently conserve 30% of all land by 2030.
So I think, you know, from Williston perspective, I think we're doing pretty well. We're halfway there. We've only got 7 years. Never mind. 2030 is a lot closer than I thought.
Well, and the Vermont's policy also set a goal to conserve 50% by 2050. So it wasn't just 30 by 30, it's also 50 by 50.
And this is the,
So it's in support of that effort.
That may be a little harder for Williston to achieve.
Yeah, well, and
50% of the plan.
right,
Yeah.
being close to Burlington, I don't think 50 by 50 is I don't think I've heard anybody say we should try to conserve 50% of acres in Williston. But 30 seems like a good
Mhm.
minimum to be shooting for. And there are other areas of the state where there's a lot less population and a lot more intact habitat that are better targets for 60% or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So that's another bullet then with a couple of those pieces of data points in there. And then, so that gets us to how many bullets? That's what, about 5 bullets or so that
Yeah.
would have drop in at the top. Okay.
Do we have one for the amount currently conserved? Or should we just include that with the 30 by 30?
Kind of what I was thinking,
Okay.
either include it or have another bullet right before it, I guess, with depending on how long that text is.
Last year's memo mentions that the ERF has helped conserve a little more than 10% of Williston's land.
Okay.
And I don't think we've conserved anything since last year. So probably.
No, I don't think so either. Was the conserved land, does that does not include the land that's included as part of the 75% set aside?
That's not conserved.
It is under the current bylaws, it cannot be developed, but if the bylaws were to change, right, Simon,
Yeah,
it could be developed.
so our bylaws currently say you plat it as a separate lot and we won't grant any permits for anything substantial on that parcel,
Mhm.
but if the bylaws change, then we would.
Mhm.
Whereas an easement is incredibly difficult to unpick.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, and then we also talked about, well, all right, before we move on to that, any other bullets that folks think we should include in the memo?
I just have a comment about can you go up, Simon? I think where we talked about leveraging money there. Let's see, where the heck is it? Yeah, the way that the middle paragraph where it says 2.1 million spent from ERF has resulted in 5 million in conserved land value. In my mind, that means either we got a deal on the land or we got other people to kick in money. But I think we should be clear of that it's other groups kicking in money, and maybe list, from both conservation groups, state funds, federal funds, for the various groups that we leverage money with. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
I
think
agree,
so.
and I think like that word is important, right? That like the word leveraged is important, right? That we
Right.
use to make use of other money, and it wouldn't be that getting that other money wouldn't be possible without the
Yeah.
ERF.
And if we needed a good example, my guess is Catamounts among the better examples that we have for a variety of groups that kicked in money.
Mhm.
Yep. I don't know that we have, maybe we do, but do we have a list of other groups that have contributed money to conserving land in Williston?
I think in the case of Catamount, Melinda had a PowerPoint, right? That was like, here's where all the money came from.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
Right,
quite a
for the
variety.
Catamount project, yeah, so I'm just thinking about it, I don't know if there's other parcels that have been conserved in that same way, where there's been this concerted or coordinated effort to raise funds like there was for Catamount.
Yeah, maybe not as extensive as that.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
like,
we'd have to,
I'm wondering like about Herskowitz, like, right? Did we get, that was before I joined the commission, but I thought that it was like, there was like some like collaboration between like landowner and the town and grant funding, was there not? Or did I misremember?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember, Gary, but I mean, that was a long time ago now.
But I think some of the earlier ones, we commonly got money from the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board.
Oh, that's right.
And that may
Yes.
have been one of the only, and some of those like Isham and McKay's, I think we got roughly maybe 50,000 from the VHCB.
Yes, that's right. I do remember we used to work with VHCB on some of these things.
Yeah. But I think
Uh,
Catamount would be a great example of leveraging because there's so many groups that kicked in a variety of kind of
yeah, including a bunch of just private individual
Right.
members too, right? Well, maybe that would be, if Melinda has that list, maybe that would, maybe it'd be, we could just focus on, for example, the Catamount project generated interest from all these, or support from all these groups that contribute funding or something like that.
Yeah, and VHCB was one of those groups, so it would be like we would also be, without having to have an example of one of those early collaborations with VHCB, they would be included in,
Yeah.
like a Catamount example would include them.
Okay.
You know, it occurs to me that if we're gonna cite Catamount directly, getting the Catamount Community Forest Committee to endorse this letter or co-sign it might be a good message.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Mhm.
I'm just trying to think of that. I think it's a great idea. I'm trying to think of other groups who we might.
Yeah, I don't want to put the cart before the horse. I know we're trying to actually edit the letter, but I didn't want that thought to lose me. Is that once we have a sort of near final version, I think shopping it around to a couple of the supportive committees might be helpful. I know that's time and effort that a lot of people may
Yeah,
or may not have, but
I don't think we've done that before, but
I don't think so either, but I think it's a great idea. Like, we could talk to,
I'm sure planning commission would be
yeah.
supportive of our objectives and ask.
yeah, or like Vermont Land Trust or someone like that.
Well, I was thinking town committees, but
Yeah.
but planning commission is sort of a great idea because I think they would love to have that kind of flexibility when they're evaluating developments as well. Just thought we should keep editing. Didn't mean to derail it.
No,
I wonder if we start doing town groups, if that opens a can of worms where, okay, if you endorse ours, we'll endorse yours.
Well, maybe that's not a bad thing. I don't know. I mean,
then we'd have to stop and read theirs and figure if we do endorse it.
So
For the agenda.
And my guess is nobody will refuse it. So it's kind of, when you think about it, maybe within town stuff may be kind of not as necessary as external groups. Not as helpful.
Okay, well, we can revisit that topic, but I think it's a great idea though, David. Thanks for bringing it up. Reed?
In last year's memo, I'm just reading last year's, we had a paragraph that I think addressed the a little bit of that, like other funds aspect. It says the average grand list of the 20 highest priority parcels for conservation is 459,000. However, developers examination of the town's historic URF conservation indicates that the URF contributed 50% of the grand list value, and the rest came from donations ranging from 9% to 81% across land conservation projects. I'm assuming that means like matching funds at times were as low as 9%, but as high as 81%. But then the very last sentence of that paragraph says the WCC firmly believes that it's the responsibility of the town to maintain a working target balance of 800,000 to enable work on two high priority parcels simultaneously. I think we should say something somewhere about the fact that we think it's a good target to be able to work on more than one parcel at a time. And that's why we need to continue to fund it, even if funds are in it. We don't control when the parcels become available to work on, and
and that could be a good concluding bullet. Maybe even just pulling that second bullet up from last year's memo up in the top. you know, this establishing a policy to maintain a ERF balance of 800,000.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Which, if I recall correctly, the select board kind of scoffed at that idea last year. They were like, well, let's talk about the first bullet.
Well,
And, you know, conveniently didn't come back around to the second two.
is, they're gonna have finished reviewing the Glazer parcel by the time they see this, right? No, they'll still be potentially,
It is gonna be a chat, like, I think Glazer's probably not gonna be till January.
okay,
They're doing informational sessions at the moment, and they've got a Warner hearing. No,
I mean-
the process is exhausting.
the process is exhausting.
But
That
I
was
think
kind of my
that's good.
point,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
Supposed to be exhaustive.
yeah.
well, that's kind of my point is, if had we had enough funds, we probably wouldn't even have had a specific plan. We would have had an alternative to a specific plan for the Glazer parcel, which I didn't want to harp on that early on in the process when they were trying to define a specific plan and all that, but I do feel like it's a prime example of just how much effort has gone into trying to preserve a tiny slice of viewshed
Mhm.
relative to if we had had funds, we could have had a conversation about just simply preserving the important parts outright.
Mhm.
So the other piece that we talked about was also including a chart that illustrates I can't remember if it was ERF balance or the amount of funding that the town contributed over the years from
Like that one,
like that one. Was that in last year's?
it was in last year's memo.
Remember?
Yes. It just needs 2023 updated to have our bar. Do you have that chart in?
Yeah, it seems to have disappeared from the online version for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe Google Docs doesn't seem to have to handle images very well.
Okay.
We talked about including another piece of information in there, which was the value of the parcels. There's some way of illustrating not just the ERF balance or the ERF contribution, but also like the value of the grand list, or to show that, yes, the ERF
Funding is going
contribution
like
like
this,
this,
and
yeah,
the value that,
exactly.
the cost is going like this, yes.
So Simon has worked with the town assessor to generate a lot of Excel spreadsheets. I started to look at and just.
Thanks to Michaela, who's been in the assessor's office for about 6 months, did a great job on this. So the yellow stuff is my thought. So these are our top 20 parcels. We'll spend the next hour going through this in detail. But what we asked, just say take number one is what was the 1992 value? So that's the closest to when the ERF was established.
Mhm.
And what's the current value?
Mhm.
And Michaela mentioned that they value like the house site differently than the land. So what she's done is broken out by like total grand list acreage, total grand list value in 1992. The house site is valued differently, that's 2 acres. So that gives us the remaining acreage. So this is really these are the 2 columns we want to think about. So price of the remaining acreage, so i.e. the total acreage minus 2 for the house site. And then the price per acre. So no, right, sorry, I'm already confusing myself. But this H is what we want.
Yeah, H is what we want, yeah.
So you can see there, 1992, the price per acre was $606. It's now $2,318, which is quite a significant increase.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not quite sure how that figures with inflation. But generally, if you just scroll through this, you can see generally like, 1992, where we have the data is all below 1,000. So if we sum that and create a mean, we've got a mean of 819 for the top 20, I think it's the top 11, where we have data available for both versus 2,200.
Okay.
So the message there, the simple message is that the top 20 parcels have almost tripled in value since 1992.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. 2.5 times the value, and the amount we're putting in is roughly the same.
Yeah. So that's, that could be a bullet, but I think more impactful would be if we can show that those two trends somehow in a
Oh, there's the
figure.
chart.
So there's the chart we did. Oops.
Yeah, can you change 2023 to 50,000, since that's what we ended up getting?
2024 was when we got 50,000.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
2024, right, fiscal year, got it, yeah, the year ending.
So I guess the point we're making here is back in 1992, we got $121,000, which I guess was probably scrambling around to pay back the Nature Conservancy the money we owed them from our pond. And then after that, like they seem to have settled at between 60 and 75,000.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount we're putting in is the same in dollar terms and hasn't kept up, I think is the point.
Yeah, well, there was a period where we got very low, 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, we're all below 30K.
Okay, if you look at that line.
Yeah.
That shows you.
That's the
So
trend line.
what you're talking about, Eric, is like leave that line that shows the funding trend, and then show a line showing the value or the cost, which equates to the cost to preserve line.
Yep.
And that gap is our challenge.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess one way I was thinking of illustrating that was, rather than just two trend lines, would be to do an area chart where we have whatever, blue or something underneath the amount that's been funded, and then the gap is red, so you can see the widening in red. You know?
Yeah,
Does that make sense
to
which that would be, I think that should be, if I should be able to at least be able to do that. If I have the numbers in a couple of columns, I can mess around and fight with Excel to get it into an area chart.
So the 206,000, did the town actually fund the ERF, or was that money back from?
That's the catamount.
Yeah, that was
They funded that for Catamount.
they put extra money in the ERF
Okay, that
to
makes
be
sense.
used on Catamount.
All right,
Notice they made up for it the next year though with a zero.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that was, to be fair, that was pandemic where everyone was
Right,
like,
Everybody.
I have no idea how much money we're gonna get.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a double
You know,
whammy.
Simon, one thing I was thinking as I was looking at those numbers was that those are presented in nominal values. If you wanted to adjust it in real purchasing dollars and adjust everything to 2023 dollars, you would actually see the slope of that line significantly, I guess, go negative. It's not.
Yeah, it's an adjustment factor for each year compared to 2022 dollars.
Yeah, I think that would be. I think that would be a more apples to apples comparison, because $100,000 in 1990
Was a lot.
A lot of money
Mhm.
compared, and now we're talking about 50,000 in 2023. Like, it's
Maybe that solves the
pennies on the
problem.
dollar, literally.
I think that's a great point.
Yeah,
David, would you have to do the same thing with the cost per acre though? You kind
Well,
of.
then it would be
right?
flat, right? The cost per acre would be flat because it's all.
Well, I don't know what it would be after it's adjusted, but now they're dramatically different between 92 and current.
Yeah, I think
So
you're right,
that's
Gary.
kind
You
of
want,
built into that. You'd have to adjust that as well.
yeah, I think that would
Mhm.
actually be a good point. Is that $800 per acre in 1990 certainly would translate to a higher dollar value, but it would.
We could play with it, but it might not be as meaningful after we adjust both of them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we already have that. We have what it's assessed as.
Mhm.
Gary, I think it would be the opposite. I think it would show that the even if the price remains flat, a significantly declining I'm sorry,
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
continue my thought. Even if the price remains flat in real dollars,
Yes.
a declining real dollar investment would be very clear from that presentation.
Yeah, I guess so. It depends on how the difference between 92 and 2022 values change too. I mean, I don't know, maybe $800 in 92 would be worth 3,000 now. And therefore then that would go down too. I don't know. I'm not an economist, but it would be worth looking at the data.
I think you're talking about two different things, right? David is saying now it costs us more to get less land, and so we need more money. And Gary is saying, but our investments from earlier are worth more now.
Yeah, maybe I guess, but it seems like I'm saying that, $800 spent then maybe would be worth 4,000 now. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I just.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
but
that's what,
I think that's different than what David is saying, which is like, it costs us more to get less land now, and so we need more money. Right, David? Is that your point?
I think that it will ultimately be the conclusion, but it's hard to come to that conclusion naturally without seeing the dollars presented in real dollars, 2023.
Yeah, both of them would be interesting too.
Yeah, I agree. Acquisition price plus investment.
Yeah.
Both presented
we
in
have
consistent
we have
dollars.
the information we need to illustrate that, or is there more?
Well, we just Google what's money's worth, and then just put an additional column here saying in 1919, like actual amount, 2023
value in 2023.
So 10,000 in 1989 is probably worth 40,000 now.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not clever enough to figure out, is that like for like? So we change this column so that so these numbers will become enormous. They'll be like $400,000. So is that a direct comparison with the assessed value going up over the same period?
You would.
I don't know.
Yeah, we need somebody with a little bit more stats experience to help us do that. But I do think it would tell a more straightforward story for the select board, because when you're looking at a trend line that doesn't account for inflation and doesn't account for property value changes, which isn't exactly inflation. I think getting everything into the same units of 2023 dollars is what we need to do, because then the trend lines mean something.
Anybody on the town staff can do that?
Is there just like a factor that things could be multiplied, one factor that things can be multiplied by, or no?
Not a single factor, but this consumer price index that is maintained by the U.S. Department of Labor does have a historical point of reference and can essentially spit out what the sort of year by year conversion would be. So you can basically sort of translate what 1990 dollars are in 2023 dollars.
So would it be like we have to multiply each year by a different? Yeah. So I feel like,
my understanding. Yeah.
I feel like if it's possible to copy and paste, right? Like say there's a way to get those factors into a column that correspond to the year, it should be easy in Excel, right? I'm kind of asking Eric because I know that he did an entire dissertation in Excel.
Give him thanks, but that was 20 years ago.
Yeah, but here's the thing: has Excel changed in 20 years?
Yeah, no.
If I the level I use now,
that's fair. Yeah. I mean, if I could get the data, then I could definitely mess around with that.
I mean, I don't feel like that's hard. That's just Googling it and taking half an hour to do the factor for each one. I mean, maybe we just do it and then
See what
look
it
at
looks
it
like.
and go, do we need to ditch, the appraised land value increase and increase that by, go from 1992 to 2023, just using the multiplication so that it's like for like? Or maybe I don't know what I'm talking about.
So the trend line of the property values just needs to also be multiplied by its year factors. So I'm guessing that the trend line for the property value is going to be almost flat when you multiply the 92 value that you had, which was 606. Multiply that by what that would be in 2023 dollars.
Yeah.
Same, and then you don't multiply by anything for the most recent one. I think you're going to end up with a line that's almost flat, is my guess. And then when you do the year by year adjustment on the funding, what we're going to end up with is a decline in funding, relatively speaking, and that gap is going to be, I think, very clear. It's not clear on here because there's no adjustment for the change in the value of the dollar. I'm happy to help with it. I like numbers. So if you want somebody to Google all of those things, but you're good at Googling, Simon.
Here, I'm gonna drop the link. We use it in my work into the chat.
So here's a quick estimate. It says $1 in 1992 has the same purchasing power of $2.14 today. So 2.1 times, so that $600 would be $13 or so $100 today.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I don't know if that's the correct way to do it, but it's one way to do it.
Yeah. I've got the calculator, and 100,000 in 1990 is $241,500 in 2020.
So that's a little bit higher than this, but yeah.
Yep. Cool. I think if we could attempt it, I think there's potential value there. So I support it and I'm willing to help.
Yeah, my guess is it'll be, like you said, David, it'll be obvious that we're not getting anywhere near the value we used to back in 1992. And therefore, you know, we need to at least be up to even with that or greater, since we have a goal of much more conservation than we did back then. I mean, back then, people were squawking like crazy because we were shooting for 10%. And we were probably at 3 or 4%, and people were saying, no, you can't do that. And so anyways.
Yeah, you know, and just for fun, I just put in $900, which was the rough acreage cost, and lo and behold, it's $2,100 right now. So there you go. Land is going up with inflation, and our investment is going down in comparison.
So land value is staying the same in real terms.
Yes.
For the assessed value.
So you'd have to do that same thing to the contribution from the town too, obviously.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need a little asterisk somewhere that says just because the assessed value is flat doesn't mean that that's what you have to pay to compete.
Yeah, because I mean, just for interest's sake, looking here, the assessed value of the Glazer parcel, I think, is $444,000. The 15 acres of land that they're giving to us, I think they did an appraisal on what a developer will pay or as developable land, and it came out as 1.9 million.
On the 15 acres?
Yeah, so
it's on sewer.
Mm-hmm.
The developer, like the applicant, is basically giving us that much land, as part of the specific plan, or that much value in return for being able to develop it quickly.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That was a good conversation. Thanks, everyone. We should have had that. I wish I'd put that on the agenda 2 months ago. All right, so for next steps on this, we have some highlighted text now that we can turn into bullets. And then Reed and David, and Simon, can the three of you work on?
David, do you want to take the lead with Simon on trying to make the numbers make sense in 2023 terms?
That'd be fun. I like
Yep.
spreadsheets.
Cool. I'm here if you need me, but I've got other stuff going on too.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. I take it no one's coming in for our 7:35 on the McCullough subdivision.
No, so I changed that.
Oh yeah, I'm looking at
Yeah,
the old
thank you.
version.
So yeah, we've got 2 more subdivisions that we've got to review next meeting.
Mhm.
So I bumped them to next meeting to make sure we had a quorum
Okay.
to vote on them. So we've just got the chapter 9 review,
Okay.
which I guess we can proceed with.
And then I have a laundry list of questions and asks about the event on the 7th. So if we can make sure to reserve enough time, I have.
Do you want to ask David and
Well,
Eric?
David,
Yeah, 'cause
David
I got like
was-
5 minutes left. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I've got about
All right.
15.
Yes, if I could, can you pull up the deck, Simon?
Yeah.
That'll be the thing to see, and it's faster than me trying to share it. Okay. So, things are really shaped up for the event. We have a town webpage. We've got a Facebook event. People are RSVPing. At this point, I estimate we have at least 20 people coming, which is awesome, but a lot of those are us and people from Sustainable Williston and experts that we've invited. But notably Jim and Lucy McCullough, I have talked to them and they're coming.
great.
you haven't really done any promotion yet, just
Right, we have,
yeah.
I mean,
It hasn't
I am
been
promotion because I go around to all sorts of things, like 20, 50 events. Anyway, so everything's shaping up. I have a couple things that I could use some input or decisions on. One, I'll just, since it's obvious visually,
Wild
so
about Williston.
yes, so Wild About Williston is
I like the
the final
alliteration.
title, and this is, so Marcy Katz, who's my partner from Sustainable Williston on this. She is a graphic designer, so she drafted this and said for $24 worth of stock imagery, I can do this. Would you like to add it as a branding element that we can use, including in like an observer ad or other things? I think it's really cool. It's a barred owl and a lynx, which isn't quite a bobcat, but it's close.
My first guess was a bobcat from.
Yeah.
I have a picture. I have a picture of like the actual Williston bobcat. I don't know if it's harder for her to use that, but it's like not a bad photo.
Feel free to share it. She is kind of a magician, so I'm sure she can make it work. So first of all, I just wanted to see if folks liked the visual, and if so, then I can work with Simon on adding it to the webpage, adding it to any observer ad template that we're looking at.
Do we have a way to pay for the?
That's one of my main questions is, there's only small ticket items. There's like, $50 for door prize and $24 for creating our image. And, there's like these little things. What's the best way? Offline, you could tell me, Simon, what the best way is, or if there are certain types of things that can be expensed.
So we've got conservation budget, so we can spend that on this. I mean, it's technically a trail and maintenance budget, but it's not like we're spending $3,000 on this.
No, it's going to be like, a couple $100 or $400 total for all the different things that go into it.
Okay.
A lot of it, I already have people donating to pay for things, but I've told them if I'm able to cover it in our budget, then I will. Okay, so key things. I wanted to show a chart of what it would take to fund 30 by 30. So we already talked about that. That's off the list. We can skip over the first couple for right now. I just told you, Simon, that I need to know how to expense things if possible. Okay. The logo, I didn't hear any dissent. Is there like
Looks
excitement
great.
about it?
Yeah, it's
I
cool.
actually, if I saw that, I'd be like, I wanna go to that.
It looks cool, okay. That's an actual picture of the woods on French Hill, so it's a Williston photo with, anyway. Okay, so I'll work with Marcy to actually include that, and it's just in time for us to do an observer ad soon and put it on the website before we start doing like front porch forum posts and stuff, so that's cool. I need somebody who can help me develop a few talking points around the land trust aspect and how land trusts have worked with us, because I don't feel like I'm educated enough on it to do a good job. I can also reach out to Bob and Kate, Bob Heiser and Kate Wenner, who are they're gonna be there, I believe, to answer questions and stuff, but if anybody feels like they kind of understand that aspect pretty well, and some examples of it, then I would love to just have an offline phone call to jot down some notes for.
I don't know, I guess I don't know, how, I know generally how, you know, what our relationship has been with land trusts, but I don't know what more it is that you need to know.
Well, I think one of the key questions would be like, what's the likelihood of working with them for future conservation projects, given what's left to conserve in Williston?
Mhm.
Because it seems like that's become a little bit less opportune. Catamount was a big one, obviously, but at this point, we're looking at some smaller parcels on our prioritization and stuff, so.
I guess to answer that question, it would be best that maybe just send them to the list of parcels and ask them, and do any of these hit or check the boxes on your priority list?
Okay.
Maybe, hopefully they say yes for at least a few of them.
I thought you were gonna say like you wanted someone to help you think about like the mechanics of what they do, because like that also is like, I don't know, kind of complicated. I don't know if do we want to have that in there?
Yeah, given that we have like 55 minutes for content, we have a lot to go through. I kind of want to keep it very high level. There's
Yeah.
gonna be, the event's gonna open at 6:45. There'll be mingle time for 15 minutes. We have an hour to do a 55-minute presentation, and then we have 15 minutes of mingle time at the end, which I think is a really cool sandwich. And so ideally, I would like the 15 minutes at the end to be an opportunity if somebody's really interested in the land trust aspect and Kate or Bob are there, it's an opportunity to like, you know, mingle and ask them questions or learn more about it.
Hey Reed, I'm sorry, I gotta run. My schedule's up in the air because of what's going on in with the house right now. But if I am available, I'm happy to bring anything that you need.
Yeah,
so I'll let you know closer to the date.
Sounds good. The things I need help bringing everybody, if you have it, is I need dishwasher safe plates and like little ball jar, jelly jar things, because
I have so many of those. I'm so happy to bring them to something.
Perfect. Okay.
If I have a working dishwasher, that would be better. But
oh yeah.
So
that we should commiserate about getting work done on our houses and how long it's taking and people ghosting and yeah.
So far, no ghosts, thank God. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I hope that continues because
oh my goodness,
the stress.
Yeah. People just not showing. Yeah.
For like weeks.
Sorry,
weeks.
Kim.
It's okay. It's going to be great. It's like a problem that you can only have if you're privileged enough to put an addition on your house. So I'm like trying to just be grateful.
That's right.
I got to run. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Right, thanks, David.
So the reason I'm asking for these things is I'm trying to make it a zero waste event. Sustainable Williston in the past has partnered with the town to make other events zero waste, but it's become quite difficult since they no longer take as many things as readily in terms of the composting. And with COVID, people got really concerned about like sharing things and touching things. So we're trying to find a way to bring that back. So at a high level, the plan is to try to have, there's going to be cake decorated to highlight conservation in Williston, which would be cool. The plan is to have like water and cider, try to keep the products local. And then to have some sort of snacks like grapes still just snipped on little pieces of their own vines so that people can just grab a little grouping with a napkin and do that, and maybe cheese cut up with toothpicks which can be composted. So we're trying to find a way to do that. And I have somebody signed up to be a waste warrior, Lynn Blevins. So she will be there to help people figure out, okay, where do I put my dirty dish? Where do I put my half my piece of cake that I didn't need and all that. So that's pretty much taken care of. But what I need is more plates, especially small plates that can be dishwashed
I have
after.
hundreds of plates.
Do you?
Yeah.
Even small ones?
Oh, yeah.
That's Kim's picture.
Oh my gosh, yeah, okay, we can't use that, but that is creepy. Okay, that is like very wild looking.
Yeah.
That does not look
Is
like
that
a
your
hazmat.
back porch, Kim?
It's actually do you all know Megan Coe and Alan Cote?
Yeah.
They're back here. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's probably the
Yes.
same.
yes, I actually live next to them. Okay, so that's that, and the jelly jars are because that's what people are gonna drink out of,
Yep.
which is gonna be pretty cool, I think. So we'll just have them all like laid out and people can fill their drink. And then I'm gonna have a giant Rubbermaid tub that we can collect all the dirty dishes in, and I'll just take them home.
Oh, I can take them home if they're mine and wash
Okay.
the dishes.
Maybe we need
Does,
two separate tubs.
Yeah.
did Adams end up doing any of their own cider this year or no?
They did do cider.
They did, okay, They had to
But they
purchase
bought
apples.
all their apples.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They got them
Adams.
from Allen Home or
Yeah.
wherever.
yeah.
Okay.
But they do have, they have cider.
Okay.
So is anybody interested who knows they're gonna come in bringing cider?
Yeah, I can make cider. A couple gallons.
I'll know a lot more in 2 weeks in terms of how many people are clicking.
Okay, and then just tell me how many plates and I'll bring extras.
Okay, cool. That is what I needed to know.
Okay,
Thank you. I think that
That
covers
answers
them
all those questions?
Yeah, well, we didn't have time to go through like the marketing plan, but you know, I think Simon and I can handle the marketing plan, and I've got people from Sustainable Williston lined up, and Laura as well, to post on Front Porch Forum. And I've given them suggested angles or perspectives to share, so like, those include, things like, do you wonder where all the animals are supposed to live when the businesses and houses are eating away at their habitat in Williston? So that's one perspective that I know is really a lot of people connect with. They're like, where are all the animals supposed to live? And then, do you love Williston views, trails, and parks? Then Wild Williston is for you. Do you wish you could preserve your land and its natural resources forever? Then this is for you. So I'm sure there's like more and more that we could do, and I think a lot of interest from people to post. But what I'm trying to do is keep them consistent and keep them on message. So I've also asked that if anybody wants to post on Front Porch Forum about it from Sustainable Williston, please send me your draft post so that I can make sure that everything is
Right,
Online.
someone's inevitably gonna post the wrong day or something like that.
the wrong day or post
Yeah.
something that's controversial. And like, we don't want that attached to the event. So I just ask people, send me your draft post and then you can post.
okay, good idea.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Simon, are you good with the things that I assigned you to, like the finalizing the Observer ad and submitting it? And
Yeah, we're gonna change it to include this.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we should probably just totally revise it, because this isn't,
yeah, how is that gonna fit on
this is
there?
gonna, like, to see this, this needs to be this big in the ad.
Yeah.
So maybe we can fit it around that.
I also can ask Marcy if she can just recreate the ad for us with the image, since she has all the fancy software and stuff.
Okay.
And I'm sure she'd say yes. We could just give her like, this is the type of content we were gonna include. Can you find a way to make it look good with your thing? And then Planner's Corner, is that, do you know when that's going out? And
It goes out when someone decides to do it.
okay,
Is when it goes out.
well, and
I
that's
put it
typically
on-
been posted in
Yeah, I put it on the list of like
topics.
be included next time.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I'm tending to the Facebook event. And I'm gonna submit it, hopefully today, to the Observer events list. Since that's a simple submission. So those are the things that are happening with it. And we can go back to a regularly scheduled thing. I know you
All right,
are.
awesome. I've got 3 minutes before I need to leave.
Dude, I put a bunch of photos in the chat that I just Googled bobcat photos. There's tons of them. I don't know if that's
Okay.
legal to use them, but
Yeah, I think we're good on the Bobcat image she's got,
Okay.
because she can purchase the license to use it and everything. But thank you. And then it's a barred owl in the upper right. I was like, is that an owl that we actually have in Wilson? She's like, yeah, I think it's just winter plumage on a barred owl. And I was like, okay, cool. So I wanted to make sure we had animals that actually live here and not like, you know, something crazy.
All right, so I need to head out in a minute. We had, next thing on the agenda was the town plan chapter 9 review. So I can leave that to the rest of you to look at. Looking at our agenda for next time, I don't know that we can, and we can cram it into next time as well, but next time's looking pretty full.
We need to do the 2 pre-apps.
Yeah.
And talk to Fellowship of the
Right,
Wheel,
that's why I'm thinking it's pretty full.
yeah.
So, happy to leave, chapter 9 in all your good hands. I'll let you run with it.
Okay.
I didn't see a link to the results, but you have the combined results.
I tried putting them on a PowerPoint by Circulate, but that doesn't have your comments on it.
Yeah, I was tardy.
So I did update it yesterday afternoon before I left.
Muffins before I leave.
I'm good. I have one.
I'm good, Rena. Thank you.
Simon.
Thanks.
Enjoy the chocolate chips. They're good.
How old is she?
9.
Oh, what a great age.
Oh, you did add mine.
Yeah, I did it yesterday afternoon, just I still haven't really got my head around the best way to do this, because the spreadsheet you download is not particularly helpful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thanks everyone. Have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Derek.
So the first one was the objective for the country parks, and as ever we did the, like, what do you think the objective should be? Sort of couple of points there to maintain what we have, but also to get more. And then I think that's Reed's comment at the end, which is basically to take a more, I guess, scientific approach to how we manage these things. I'll summarize that as. And then
Hopefully we get trail counters.
Yes.
again, these are very similar. Focus on creating high quality parks. And a member of the public who decided to participate. Unfortunately, they're not able to be here today.
That's too bad.
Want us to focus on maintaining and developing property we already own. And there's a little bit about equity in there.
Yeah, how to balance the equity issue versus the quantity issue, I think is something that needs to be hashed out in the town plan process, because we might take very different steps if we want to prioritize getting to 30 by 30 versus if we want to say getting to 30 by 30 is great, but it's not worth it if it doesn't increase access for underserved areas.
So I don't see anything in there about identifying key connections and trying to make them happen. Is that, because there seems to be more like, don't do anything new.
There's a trail section, isn't there?
Okay, maybe that's in there.
Not a trail section.
Yeah, we're just not to the trail section yet.
Okay, thank you.
So the goal was to maintain the existing country parks. So I guess people thought we did okay on that.
Yeah, I think it was a huge step to do the SE group work. That was a pretty major undertaking, and it gave us like segment by segment information for long-term maintenance costs and prioritization, which is great. But the one thing that they didn't have to take into account on that is current usage trends. So if something was seriously degraded because it was old versus if something was seriously degraded because it was used a lot recently, or maybe two different, maybe it makes a different, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Projection of like, how often are we going to have to replace this? Might be a different thing.
Develop additional country parks. So we actually achieved this pretty well by acquiring Catamount, which is good. We didn't develop Brownell Mountain into a country park. I think largely problems of getting a parking lot and the Achilles heel of any country park.
There was an interesting comment in here. Who was it? Kim? Somebody? No, it was you. Richmond has all these like pop-up parking lots.
I know, how do they do that?
How do they do
Great.
that?
And people use them, there are always cars in them.
It immediately popped in my head, the one by the bridge into Richmond.
Right.
There's just this little bit of grassy area, and then they put up the posts and they wrap the string, and then people park there.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, how do they do that?
Well, so I don't know if this is true, but many of those parking areas are adjacent to popular mountain bike trails. This part that I'm saying is true. Many of those parking areas are adjacent or providing access to popular mountain bike trails on private land.
Oh.
And so my assumption is that it is the private landowners that are the same private landowners that are allowing the building of really popular mountain bike trails on their land are also providing parking. And I don't know if it's exclusively true, but I think that one on Johnny Brook, like the one on Johnny Brook Road, which is the one I think you're talking about, Reed, people are parking there to ride at Chamberlain Hill, which is on private land. And then there's like one closer to Cochrane, and people are that I also think is on private land, and people are parking there to ride the trails at Cochrane ski area, which is on like a couple, it's on like land owned by Cochrane, and then another couple adjacent private landowners. So I think it's like mountain bike enthusiasm that's doing that. I think. I have to go get coffee. I'll be right back.
Negotiating it with private landowners. Yeah. Williston private landowners don't seem to like to participate like that. Like, I feel like everything I've heard has been when we approach somebody about, can we work with you to find a way to have access? It's like, not on my land.
But I think like Terry lets mountain bikers go on her land. We have no I mean the town. And I wonder if there's a difference between a group of local mountain bikers approaching a private landowner and saying, can we ride on your land versus the town who you pay your property taxes to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, has a lot of power, approaching you and saying, we want to build trails on your land. That, like, to me, if I own a piece of land, those would be two different prospects.
Yeah, that's for sure. Mhm.
Okay. I hadn't thought about it that way.
Because like Fellowship of the Wheel, I think, do a great job, and most like we're almost like a bit unusual with mud ponds, and that's something that we're doing with them, and they have all these other links everywhere else as well that they sort of help out by just messaging people,
Mhm.
just communicating, don't be respectful, this is private land and they're letting you go on it, don't, ride on it, but don't
screw it
scream
up.
and shout
Yeah.
when you're going down the hill, or, stay
Right.
on the trail.
How much, like, has the town ever asked a landowner if we could buy a small piece for a parking lot? Like, do you think people would be amenable to that? Like,
Kim,
how
did
much-
that ever come up with Mud Pond Conservation Area and wanting a parking lot on South Road? I know you were involved in a lot of those attempts to find parking. You there, Kim?
You may have stepped out for a minute.
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So I think general support for additional country parks.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting point that the town is not doesn't necessarily have to be the town that does this.
Mhm.
But I would be interested, like, what I think Vermont Mountain Bike and Fellowship of the Wheel do quite well is like an umbrella group to help message everyone. And so that the hikers don't really have that.
Mm.
There's
Right.
no equivalent for the hikers. You can say, the landowner's telling us you guys keep straying off the trail and it's annoying him,
Mhm.
whereas they do have that for mountain bikers.
Mm.
Yeah.
The member of the public's comment was interesting to me, this idea of, should the town get to vote on acquisition of new land, and it just made me pause and think a little bit, with the event coming up. I was gonna be on this slide, I was going to invite that person to come to the event,
Mhm.
but
Yeah, I mean, it has to go to select board when we spend money from the OF, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if we had like anybody bring that up. Like there were people who opposed the conservation of Catamount on the basis that we were spending their taxpayer dollars on it, which is kind of flawed logic, but it was like not very much taxpayer dollar per person in Williston. But like I do think that was a conversation, and I don't know if we should just like have a talking point response in case it ever comes up again.
That, you're talking about Catamount at your event, correct?
yeah, it's one of the examples that I've asked, that Simon and I have decided is a good example of a lot of different pathways being used at once.
Yeah, it might be good to emphasize how little tax dollar money is spent.
I feel like Melinda had a lot, like a sentence that she wrote that we all had in our back pocket, and now I've forgotten what it is, but like the number 50 is in my mind, and I can't remember if it was like
$50 a person.
$50 a person one time or something like that. But I'm not confident in that. I just remember that like it was really low, and I had a sentence.
Did we
that I
spend
could,
like $500,000?
Yeah.
That'd probably be, I think we spent $400,000 and there's like, what, 10,000 people in
Right.
town?
So like
That
40
makes about,
bucks a person.
yeah. Obviously, if you've got kids, you're paying. You're paying for them
We're
as
paying for
well.
them too, yeah, but yeah, kids don't use catamounts. Kim, I think you missed my question earlier, which was regarding like parking for Laura had asked, have we ever tried to approach landowners to say, can the town purchase a little posted stamp of land from you so that we can put a parking area in for either conservation area or country park or something? And didn't you work with Melinda and landowners to try to find additional parking options for Mud Pond? And
Yeah,
was
yeah, sorry, I had like gone to get coffee. Okay,
That's
so
okay.
the place, yes, and the place that we were we didn't ask all of the like adjacent landowners, but we explored the possibility of the Seipel property because it is big and there's like a couple spots that we thought might work, and we already like have a relationship with them because their land has maybe a VLT easement on it, if I'm remembering. And like the issue was in that case that like the easement precluded a parking, like the parking counted as a precluded structure.
Right.
That is like the only other thing that I think has come up that's been like similar to that is when Catamount, or in my tenure anyway, when Catamount was conserved, there's like the old skating oval that's like the overflow parking for Catamount, which the McCulloughs retained. And they had like expressed that they would consider selling that to the town in the future.
Okay.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's my only, yeah.
So, I just wanted to comment briefly on the management plans, the value of them. I think it's particularly valuable when we identify what our plans are to do so other people can look back, or we can defend something we're doing in a park because it's been accepted in a management plan. I'm thinking of Catamount, where it was nice to be able to say, yes, forest management is required and necessary and approved in the management plan, and therefore we don't have to worry about people saying, no, you can't do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, they've got a lot of value, and I think they're good for making sure like when we wanted to put the quiet connector in, keeping ourselves honest as well.
Yep.
And we've got to change the management plan, which means we've got to talk to people and get their views about it. So I think they're very helpful. Yeah. So I don't think a member of the public had the same opinion as us on the management plans.
Yeah.
About 75% open space, and this is in response to that requirement incentivizes developers to dedicate their land to the town.
I haven't really seen that taking place with the 75%.
No.
So, yeah.
So they would do that to score points at growth management.
Right, but that's
we've made it so difficult to develop in the ARZD that people don't really need to score points because no one's developing there.
they're not competing against anyone.
They're not competing against anyone. So
Good point.
I don't know.
Yeah, it does make me wonder whether we should be offering, like, trying to purchase any of those open space lots.
Yeah.
If they are contiguous with other conserved land.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be, that could be received poorly by some, and well by others, I think.
Yeah. I mean, by the people we'd be purchasing from, they're thinking, I can't do anything in that land anyway.
I don't know if that's what they're thinking.
Oh, yeah.
And they still have to pay taxes on the land too, which is a good thing for the town.
But they wouldn't if
Right.
we purchased it.
Right, that's what I mean, is that it's in the town's best interest not to want to purchase it. Unless we want some kind of permanent
Right.
conservation. Yeah.
So if you want to get to 30 by 30, you're gonna have to get some low hanging fruit. And is this some piece of land that's not really, we're never gonna have a trail on because it's landlocked, or we just don't want to manage that many trails?
Yeah.
Is that something we can get, and that way it takes it out of the development? Who's to say in like 2 town plans time that people of Williston don't decide, actually, you know what, we do need to develop all these 75% parcels?
Right,
that
yeah,
could
I just
happen.
get nervous about it not being permanently conserved and just being dependent on the bylaws.
Mhm. Especially with the laws, the way they're changing in Vermont. And probably will continue to change.
Okay. What
I
are
mean,
the
I think
alternatives?
that comment from the resident is interesting. And that shows you what some people do think about this 75%.
They think it's eminent domain. They think that the
Yeah.
town is saying, when you develop, you have to give us 75% of your property. And that's not what's happening, but. Right, it seems like they're saying,
Well, I don't want to
forces
read too
you-
much. I mean, I thought it meant that like
forces you to dedicate it to the town. Because of the
we're
question.
sterilizing like 75% of their land
Uh,
for development, which
Yeah.
is, we're not, by their view is that we're not giving them anything. We say, well, you are developing on 25% of it. And not to get too deep into the weeds, but you get the density from that 75%, you just have to put it on 25%.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I thought they
That's a
were
good point.
saying. When I read that comment, I thought they were saying that in response to the question of. Or the
I think
topic
this,
of 75% open space incentivizes developers to dedicate their land to the town. I thought this person was interpreting it, the current state, as they are forced to give at no compensation 75% to the town. I don't know that they know that the 75% open space remains landowners' property. And that the density is just.
I mean, it's confusing, it's difficult to get your head around.
Yeah.
And this doesn't, like, the format we've had this in relies on a lot of prior knowledge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But like, I think that's an interesting thing to note, what some people's views are.
Looks like I need to include one sentence in our thing on the 7th about,
Yeah.
one of the things that has contributed to reducing fragmentation,
Mhm.
even though it doesn't permanently preserve it, is our 75% rule.
Yeah.
And here's write that down before I forget.
Trails.
Here you go, Gary.
Okay.
Here's the trails.
So just, I think more and better getting easements. Making sure we manage our existing ones well. More connections. And then great point from River Hill, evaluate current usage, which I think everyone here would agree with.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like that comment about the activists organizing themselves in the committees.
Don't take it personally.
And, yeah, unaccountable.
Yeah. So. Yeah, work with landowners, create the desired trail network. Focus on maintenance or maintain only. I don't want to misrepresent what they're saying. No new trails.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, we thought that as well, maintain only. To put our money into. only
The next
maintaining
town
trails.
plan is gonna govern a period of time, though. It's gonna be, what is it, 8 years?
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm thinking about 8 years. Within those 8 years. I feel like. We have to balance. catching up, or I guess meeting the challenge of maintaining what we have. But there's also question marks about whether the trail networks that we have can handle the volume of use. And whether we need to spread that use across more trails. I don't know.
Yeah, it looks that way. I mean, right, the parking lot's good.
Based on the parking lot activity, it looks that way, but we don't have
Yeah.
trail counters yet.
Right.
So, I don't know if this is the place to put in something about the, trying to make connections whenever possible between, existing trails, using easements we already have to start with at least. And also can you go back to that last one, Simon? What is in the River Hill comment, what does FOTW mean?
Fellowship of the Wheel.
Oh, okay, thank you. Oh, maybe that fits more under expand the trail system, what I was talking about.
I don't quite understand how the official map changes how we would go about or our options for expanding the trail system. I know that things on the official map, the town gets first right of refusal on. Is that right?
So if they're developing, they have to accommodate the
map,
the infrastructure, no matter what that is. So in our case, it'd be primitive trails. So for smaller development, we'd probably say, give us an easement. Or for a development where it has a trail but it doesn't connect anywhere, we'd say, give us an easement. Or if it's like a self-contained trail or it's the last connection, we'd probably say, build it for us or give us an easement and then we're going to build it. If they say it's like this is like probably in the realm of would never happen. But if they say no, I don't want to do that, the town then gets something like 6 months to buy their land, and then the town can do it. And then if the town doesn't buy their land, they continue their development without giving us the trail easement.
Okay, so it just starts a negotiation process, basically. Okay. Do you have the official map? I'm trying to remember what we put on the official map for the primitive trails. To your point, Gary, about connections.
Yeah.
I was wondering whether we had some, most, or all of them on there. Sorry to derail your shareage.
Yeah, in my opinion, it'd be nice to make some headway on that. I mean, we almost every year we talk about, oh, let's try to make these connections, but I guess it just never becomes enough of a priority to do anything about it, or it's too hard to do. I don't know.
Yeah, or the landowners in question are not ready to do anything development wise, so they're not interested in negotiating.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm talking about existing easements that we already have. There are places, I believe there's still some valuable connections that we could legally make immediately because we already have an easement.
I thought we had pretty much.
Or maybe I'm wrong.
I thought we'd work through the ones we have complete connection. So the code on here, we have easements that are dotted.
I think it's a little difficult to tell, but the black. So if this is Hurricane
black easements we have.
The dots are the desired trails. So the black easements we have. So we have them across these two residents' land.
But we
don't have it to connect to Hurricane Lane, and then we don't have it for this missing link here, and it pitches you out to Bradley Lane.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, at the very least, we could just investigate what the feasibility of completing these connections are, and maybe have a next step things if possible. Some of them maybe had to be completed already. Some would be require a discussion with a landowner. And if I think I remember correctly, we can use ERF money to buy easements through those properties if the landowner is willing. Is that correct, Simon? I mean, we had at one point we had something like so much a foot we were allowed to pay for a trail easement.
We bought an easement from McKay's, which is where Smoker is, and Five Tree Hill.
Yep.
So you would assume so.
Yeah, and it may that it's been a long time since we've looked at that amount. It may not be a viable amount now compared to the value of land. I don't know. It seems like it was a couple bucks a foot or something we could buy them for.
So it looks like we have at least the highest priority connections on that official map. And now that I think about it, I do remember we reviewed trails and we reviewed a couple other things when the official map was being developed. Okay. I don't remember times where we've required construction of trail.
I think the problem is it's like, what's the point in constructing a trail that's like 10% of the trail?
Yeah.
Is probably the issue with that. I mean, hardly anyone would owns a piece of land that would encompass an entire trail that we want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was wondering whether in my comment we could do kind of like the impact fees if we have a desired connection and this is a component of that connection. Could we rather than requiring them to build it, could we collect a fee that goes into a fund that's earmarked for that connection? So that it's not just like a trail fund, because as I understand it, you can't just say like, we're gonna collect an impact fee and then not assign it to a project.
You would have to develop a list. I think what you'd do is you'd identify the impact that new residential is going to have on the trail system. And then you'd identify, say, okay, these are the projects that we want to do. And then you get, as you gradually build up a sum of money, you go, okay, great, we've got enough to do project D now.
Yes,
do it.
That's what I was thinking of, is like basically having a list of connections we're trying to make, and then when we get when we're working with a landowner who's subdividing or developing whatever, that one of those parcels we collect, rather than asking them to build that section of trail because the section of trail wouldn't go anywhere yet, we just collect a fee that is held until we can construct the entire connection. It kind of seems, for primitive trails, to me, that just seems like a lot of administration and headache and arguing probably over the collection of a fee, and they're like, what's the fee for if you're not going to use it?
Right, it would be, there's no arguing, they just pay it when they pull their permit.
Right, but they're gonna be upset about having to pay a fee for something that's not gonna be used right away.
Well, I don't know, no one ever complains about the transport fee.
Really? What's that one for? Like
various improvements around
road
town.
improvements?
Yeah, same as the rec fee. We already did.
Okay, well, I mean, maybe it's not as contentious as I think it is. In my mind, I was thinking of people being like, really, you're charging me whatever $700 that's gonna be held for a primitive trail that you're not even constructing. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone's gonna be happy about it, but this is like, developers are never happy to pay fees.
Yeah. A lot of our desired trail connections are in the ARCB though, so it's mostly, I think, landowners subdividing their own lands and not like developers in the sense of people who are doing large scale residential stuff. So I feel like those conversations, like we've had a couple landowners who have come in recently, and they're just frustrated that there's even a need to have an easement or that.
And on to that also, one of the people who has voiced like concern about that is Mike Isham. So like for whatever that's worth, I've had like a couple explicit conversations about his views on that, both like in Conservation Commission and then like just like while blueberry picking at his farm. So like I don't know. It that's just to say like it is a town-wide, or it is at least like a concern that is in the town in different places.
Yeah. So at the moment, I've had a couple of calls about the Five Tree Hill Trail. People are wandering off the demarked trail, going all over the landowner's land and encountering hunters who have the landowner's permission to be there. And having discussions with those hunters.
Like they yell at the hunters?
Well, I'm only getting this secondhand, so I don't know who's to blame, but I understand there have been altercations.
Altercations with, conflicting uses because
Yeah.
people aren't
Wait,
staying on the trail.
who's calling you? The hunter or the person who left the trail?
None of those, just people who've heard about it from other people.
Oh, huh.
Mhm.
Interesting. Do we think that's like one incident that got telephone storied into multiple incidents?
No, they've been far enough apart and they're in different areas. I think it's at least 2 incidents I know of.
Interesting.
Well, a sign probably at the trailhead saying, it's hunting season and you're crossing private land, stay on the trail.
Would not be very effective.
Okay.
I don't know, like, it's just, I don't know what the answer is. It's just something to be aware of that. You know, he said you can hunt on my land, you got your permission, and the hunters are finding there's people wandering off the trail all over private land. And when I look at that trail from Hurricane Lane to Bradley Lane, when I look at that, I think, wow, that is a lot of people to manage.
Yeah, and that one lot where you need an easement was bought by a person who bought it specifically for hunting.
Yeah.
And not building it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, because obviously we still want to have all these, and there's trails on private land everywhere. It's just something to think about, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm amazed people would wander around in hunting season anyway.
Yeah. Lake Iroquois. No strong opinions on this. Just Lake Iroquois seems to be doing a reasonable job, I think, the association or the district rather. And then continue to engage volunteer involvement, enhancing and maintaining recreational facilities.
Yeah, so the volunteer thing, my main comment was just, does it, is it tenable for staff? Because it just takes a lot of staff oversight to like deal with questions, track who's doing what, deal with like.
So we would have to think about resourcing if we were gonna amp up the volunteers. It is challenging to manage. I'm sure Chapin would tell you that part of the biggest time constraint he finds on doing his work at Buzzing Manahanic is just organizing everyone. Particularly, we need to have volunteer waivers.
The waivers is another one because it's supposed to technically be 10 days or something in advance of doing the work, and
well, that's another thing. So people are supposed to tell me in advance what they're doing, so that I can yay or nay it, which is challenging for some people. once you start getting kids involved, it's really difficult. Unless they're going through an organisation like the Scouts.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's
or they're accompanied by
that won't cut it.
yeah.
They've got to be going through an organisation.
Mm, yeah.
So it is something that I guess we need to figure out. Like, do we need an effective system for volunteers
Mhm.
with a resource available?
Yeah, there was a comment, wasn't there a comment on this one about invasive warriors or something, and maybe it was on a different
Yeah.
question, but I think that invasive species is a topic that's gonna need it's going to need a lot of volunteer effort to manage. And we need to have a system in place that protects the town in terms of liability,
Mhm.
but still enables volunteerism to take place. I don't know, effectively or efficiently. If somebody has 5 hours that they can dedicate to it, but they don't know that they're gonna have those 5 hours until the night before, and they're like, oh, I'm free tomorrow afternoon, I could go out and do some of that work. That's tough. So I'm trying to figure out how to how to coordinate and manage the volunteer efforts is important. With Chapin, it's kind of been more of because he has an overarching plan that he's been discussing with you. If he wants to go out and continue to work on that plan, then you already know what's going on. But if he wants to involve other volunteers and they haven't been briefed on it, and it gets tough. So
Mhm.
I don't know how to make it better, but I think the point for the town plan is just to say, what should we be trying to do, not how do we do it? That's for us to figure out, but there needs to be an efficient and effective way for people to volunteer if they're willing to put their time and effort into improving trails and
something we heard on the Williston 2050 is that I think people see volunteering in groups as a good way to build community.
Oh, yeah, it is. It's great.
So that
having
is
volunteer days.
yeah.
Mhm.
It's also a good way to do education for people to learn about invasive species, to learn about native species, learn about ecosystem services, Kim.
Yep.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah, one person that came to Catamount when Terry and Chapin and I were doing our invasive treatment over there. Her name was Jane, and she's actually taking I don't know if she even contacted you. She's gearing up to take the test to become certified.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's really interested in helping the town applicator. So I don't know how that would work in the town, and
But I probably we probably have to have a bit of getting to know you. But I probably do a year-long volunteer agreement once we've gone through that process. And the first ones I wanted to go out with you and Chapin until we were comfortable.
right.
With it.
There's some sort of apprentice or mentoring process with somebody who's been doing it. I think one of the main things that happens occasionally with the invasive work is just accidental treatment of non-invasives.
Yeah.
And so that's where just having you just need a certain number of hours of identification practice to be all right, I know if that's invasive or not.
Right.
Another way to do it is by flagging. So you have volunteers flag the invasives, and then or somebody with a good identification flags them, and then somebody with not as good identification skills can come through to the treatment.
Mhm.
So
Terry did with Mo and the Scouts.
Yeah. I heard there was some misidentification in marketing, but
I heard about that too, but
but you know.
Those come back though, because
Yeah.
they didn't treat them.
Well, and the other thing, right, and the other thing that happens is, you don't get good at it unless you try.
Mhm.
And so that you need practice hours and you're gonna get it wrong sometimes. That's why you just need to be partnered up with an experienced person.
Mhm.
Okay, great. So that's all I have. We've already talked about the other business.
Okay.
And if anyone else has anything?
No, do you have 5 minutes to stay after Simon to talk about expenses for the event and what works and doesn't work for? Like how to pay for things?
Right, okay.
He went and he just start a spreadsheet of the things that got paid for our expenses.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna take off. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I'm gonna end the meeting now and call it to a close.
Thank you.
Thank you.